What is up, Steeler fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Hangover. I'm Daniel, and alongside with me, as always, is Shannon. Shannon, how you doing, my man?
Doing good. It's a little bit cool, rainy day, kind of gloomy. So let's talk some Steeler football and lift my spirits.
Let's lift some spirits. Well, we're going to talk about the good stuff. Let's talk about the new rookie jersey numbers. They're finally out. We're going to see what players are or what the new rookies are going to be using. Let's start off in order. We'll start off with offensive tackle Troy Fatuanu. Now, this one's been out for a little bit. Number 76. Most recently, that was Chuk's number. How do you feel about Fatuanu taking over Chuk's number?
Oh, there's been a lot of talk about when they give out certain numbers immediately after somebody's gone.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, they basically let him walk. So the number I'd like to see it on. I think it's a good number for him, and I have no issues with giving out numbers like that. It isn't like it's a former All Pro legend for the Steelers, so yeah, I have no issues.
Yeah, I kind of had a little bit of George Pickens, Lima Swede feel to it, though.
Yeah,
I was like, man, when George Pickens got 14, the first person that came to mind was Lima Swede. Not even since then, there was another player. He broke his hands. What was his name? Number 14, Sammy Coates.
Oh, Sammy Coates. Yeah.
You see, I don't even think of Sammy Coates when I think of the past 14s. It automatically goes to Lima Swede and Neil O'Donnell. Those two are the ones that.
Yeah, we don't want to jinx you. That's the main thing.
Exactly. So when I saw 76, I was like, but all right, not too bad. Zach Frazier, he keeps 54. I don't think there's any surprises there. Have you ordered your jersey yet?
No, it's good. We're going to. But that was his high school number, his collegiate number, and it only makes sense that he'll take that in, and that'll someday be his Hall of Fame number.
There you go. The next one, Roman Wilson comes in with number 10. I thought it was a solid number. He was number 1 in college. The Steelers aren't giving up that number. So 10, I think it's a solid number. I think it looks good. What do you think about 10 for the receiver?
Oh yeah, because I mean, if he can, come close to following in Santonio Holmes' footsteps and catch a game-winning Super Bowl touchdown, hey, I'm all for
it. Yeah, me too. Peyton Wilson comes in with number 41. That one I think was also one I don't think a lot of people were too surprised with. I think that was the rumor that was coming out the last time we spoke.
Uh-huh.
Solid number. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to look good on him. What do you think?
Yeah, he is such a phenomenal athlete, and he's so much fun to watch. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing 41 flying all over the field. He's going to be the linebacker version of Troy Polamalu.
I hope so. That one is the one that I'm eyeing to get out of the rookie class is the Peyton Wilson one. I think he's going to be the Steelers draft. I think he's going to be an excellent middle linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yep. A little concerned about the injury stuff like everybody else, but I think the biggest concern for me, which was that whole no ACL thing. However, he got that early on in his collegiate career, and it wasn't a big issue throughout the rest of his career. I mean, he was clocked doing 23 miles an hour without an ACL. So some people don't need it.
That ACL holds people back.
There you go. Mason McCormick, number 66. A solid number. I like it. I think he's going to look good in the 66 number, transferring from 60. But, these guys towards the end of the draft, we're probably not going to see a lot of them on the field. What do you think about 66 for McCormick?
I think it's funny. A lot of the numbers are duplicate because when you go into camp, you can have an offensive player and a defensive player have the same number. And so, will he be 66 the whole time? I'm not sure, but I know he's FBS. He's smaller school, but just watching his highlights, you love to see him play. At least he'll get to play in preseason, and I can't wait to watch him because he's just slobber knocking people. He's just looking for somebody to take their head off. And Wilson's the same way. He said that's what he looks for in every play. Somebody can take their head off. Hey, I like it. Bring the pain, baby. Bring the physicality. We've been missing that.
For sure. And yes, Steeler Lee says, didn't DeCastro wear
Yep.
66? He sure did. Defensive tackle Logan Lee is going to be coming in with number 74. I think it's going to look better than 85. 85, he looks like a tight end.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Well, see,
So-
he was a tight end when he come to Iowa.
oh, really? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
and then he went to the defensive side of the ball, and because I noticed his 40 was up there like
Mhm.
4.9s or 5. So I don't know if tight end. He probably made the right decision going to the defensive line, but yeah, he's going to need to fill out a little bit to fill that number out fully because he's a little thinner.
I agree. 100%. He gets a lot of comps to Brett Kiesel coming out of college. You know, I get a lot of comparisons, the way the style and the way he plays.
Yep.
Again, he's got to bulk up a little bit and he'll have that time. I think he's going to be more of a project for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Definitely. But I think he could contribute on special teams. I remember Kiesel running down, and it was always fun watching them guys run down and used to break the wedge. You don't have that anymore, but
Yeah.
it was always fun to have the bigger guys to do that. So Lee is got a lot of energy and a lot of effort. So I'm excited about him as well.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I'm excited for all these guys. I can't wait for things to start happening and we get to start seeing those clips of them out there in practice and things like that.
Yeah.
Defensive back Ryan Watts, number 29, taking Levi Wallace's number. He's the last guy that's been picked up. He's probably a question mark if he's going to make the team, but if he does, 29, it is what it is. I don't think it's going to look bad on him. What do you think?
Oh, no, and 29 could work for cornerback or safety.
That's true.
Which I think eventually he'll be a safety. But, people, I didn't know a lot about him until he was selected because I didn't really pay much attention to him because he was going to have to convert to safety, in my opinion. And we know that's really hard to do at the NFL level, to switch positions. But if you look at him, 6'3", 208 pounds, put together, 34.5-inch arms. His arms would have been the longest of anybody in the defensive backfield or at the combine. Longer than Joey Porter's arms.
Oh,
So
wow.
if he can give you great special teams, he looks like he's going to be a great gunner, which the Steelers need right now. And then if he can give you like some at that height and with that arm length, some coverage on tight ends or bigger wide receivers, and ease him in for a few snaps here and there, he could be another developmental project.
Yeah, he definitely could be. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, he's from Texas. I'm from Texas. I don't really watch college football, so I'm not too sure about how well he played or not. But yeah, the Steelers want those longer, bigger guys, and I think that the NFL is also transitioning back into more of a running type of league. And with that being said, I think they're going to want some of those bigger, stronger dudes to help out with the run and things like that, especially when you're going up against teams like the Ravens and the Browns that typically have a very strong running game.
What are they calling them? What are they calling them? Bigger corners the Steelers are getting? Are they calling them avatars?
I think so.
I mean, they really are. They're really going for the longest time. It was 5'8", 5'9" Smurfs, and now they're getting avatars.
That's true. That is true. Well, I'm excited. Getting the numbers is the next step. I think the next step is finding the schedule. I think it's been rumored Thursday, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing Thursday. It hasn't been official yet. I haven't seen anywhere official that it's going to be announced then. But I think there's been a lot of rumblings that Thursday is going to be the day when it comes out. I'm looking forward to it. I know that Antonio Brown has been putting out on his Twitter that he thinks it's going to be Ravens versus Steelers Sunday Night Football Week 1. If that ends up being the case, what do you think about starting off the year against a division foe like that on prime time?
That's one of the things I look at a lot of times is when the schedule first comes out is when you play who and where. We know it's where if it's a divisional opponent, you're playing both. Right. But if it's one of the other opponents, you know that some of the games are in Pittsburgh, some are on the road, but you don't know when and what part of the season. To open the season last year, they had to open with the 49ers who were really the class of the NFC, and they had to open against them the very first week. And I was concerned about that because if they'd have played them maybe a little later when they, had some of their issues worked out, it might have been a little different. And the Niners just outclassed them completely across the board. And so that's going to be huge. The Steelers, this is a lot of new faces in new places. I would rather open against a little bit easier opponent than having the Ravens right off the bat.
Yeah.
You start out, something about starting out 0-1. It just, so, and the Ravens are always tough. I definitely don't want to start out in Baltimore game 1.
Yeah.
Week 1. That is really bad. But because, again, until they get this quarterback situation straightened out, that would be a tough opening game.
Yeah, it definitely would be. You think you'd be more prepared for that type of game, being it's a divisional game. Your division, your opponent. You would think that it might benefit the Steelers a little bit more because, well, the Steelers have Arthur Smith and a question mark with the quarterback. We're all assuming that it's going to be Russell Wilson, but nobody's seen Russell Wilson and the Arthur Smith combined offense. How they plan to run the offense with the Steelers, so it could catch the Baltimore Ravens a little bit off guard. And I don't think the Ravens are going to change too much given, they have Lamar Jackson, they have their core guys. And so I could see it being somewhat beneficial to a certain extent. But yeah, it would be a tough game. And, if the Steelers were to drop one at home again, to open up the season, it's just deflating. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it really is. And last year, coming off all the success of preseason, I think everybody expected the Steelers the offense to really take a step forward. And it just did not happen. This year, we're expecting improvement because more talented quarterback room. But and there's also a lot more experience in the quarterback room, but less experience with the Steelers. So you kind of got to balance that out. And I'm sure there's going to be growing pains. The offensive line is drastically more talented, but they got to develop chemistry. And as I've said, the Steelers don't like the starters to play a lot in the preseason. That because you don't want to get anybody hurt in the preseason, but these guys really need that reps. So I'm a little leery. I'd like to have an easier game to start the year.
Well, there's not going to be very many of those. The Pittsburgh Steelers have the toughest schedule in all of the NFL. So last time this happened, one of the last times it happened, the Steelers ended up going to the Super Bowl in 2008. So hopefully they get something like that going on again.
Hey, we'll take it.
In other news, Najee Harris's 5th-year option has been declined. There's been a lot of speculation going on that the Steelers might be trading him. There's been a lot of speculation that he might be on his way to the Cowboys. What are your thoughts on, first, the Steelers declining Najee Harris's option, and what are your thoughts on his future with the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Knowing how the Steelers operate, we did a little podcast on this. They probably would rather, instead of paying him, I think it was his 5th-year hit would have been right at $7 million, like 6.9 something. They would probably prefer to do a 2-year extension, let's say, more in the $7 million range, and spread that out a little bit, because they do have the money. It ain't a money thing; they got money sitting there. But I think they probably would rather have a little long term to see how he will do in Arthur Smith's offense. Arthur Smith's offense, you'd like Harris to have a little bit more burst to get outside a little better. Now, it's going to be blocked better this year. I'm very confident with the improvement of the offensive line. But still, he might not be the perfect fit on wide zone plays. So I think that's what made him be hesitant to pick up that option and hope that maybe during the rest of this offseason until we get to training camp and that they might can even do an extension with him. Some people have said it's because we talked about it before the show started, that he said some things towards the end of the year that the organization wasn't really happy with. I remember him saying a few things that I just didn't pay much attention to because I felt like he was telling the truth and he was speaking honestly. I never really have a lot of problems with that. I have a problem with guys whining, I'm not getting the ball enough, or I don't like that. But when a player sees an issue and the reporter's got the mic in their face and saying, well, what's going on? I'd rather hear an honest answer than a team approved answer. Let's put it that way. You said what he said. I don't remember.
Yeah, I just actually talked about it here on my last podcast, State of the Steelers, that aired out on Friday. You guys can check that out at steelnetwork.com, and where all audio podcasts are. And it was at Friday around noonish is when it airs out. And I went back and I was looking at and I asked myself, why not sign, Najee Harris to the extension? Yes, there's a question about the fit. Is he going to be fit with Arthur Smith? Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, too, I thought maybe perhaps there was some disagreement with the attitude. Now, one thing that also happened last season is he wasn't a captain when he was the year before. Now, I don't know why he wasn't a captain. Was there an issue? Was there something going on that removed him from being a captain? But the only offensive captain last season was Kenny Pickett. And then it was after the Browns game. He was the one that the Steelers ended up losing 13-10. In the post-game press conference, a Steelers representative 5 times attempted to stop an interview where he was basically talking down about certain things that were going on about the offense being too predictable, that other teams know what's going on, and that there's things that are going on that reporters just don't know about. And during this week is when Matt Canada ended up losing his job. But during that conversation, according to, I think it was Triv Live and several other sources, that it was on 4 to 5 occasions that a Steelers team rep attempted to stop Najee Harris, and he said, no, it's fine, they can continue. And that right there tells me that I think that might have something to do with it.
Yes, I missed that when it happened. Mm-hmm. I do remember him saying a lot of those things.
Yeah,
but I missed where the Trib Live or whoever said that that they was trying to stop it. The interviews, because they didn't want him to say some of the things he was saying. I see both sides. I don't see how anybody could have been involved in that offense last year and not been frustrated.
Yeah.
I mean, again, like I said, I guess I appreciate honesty a lot. I understand towing the company line, but there was things that needed to be said, that things that happened that should have never happened last year. And finally, the Steelers went out of character and made the right decision to relieve Canada of his duties. And then a lot of other things just happened naturally, due to injury and other things. But you finally started to see what a competent offense could kind of look like towards the end of the year. So that's what we're hoping moving forward. But when you think of some of the things that other players have done and other players have said, maybe it wasn't before their 5th-year option had to be picked up because you didn't really see any disciplinary action. But now last year, a core 4 got his butt set down quick.
Yeah.
Real fast for going against the company line. And if that's why they didn't sign Harris, that very well could be the reason. I don't believe even if they let him play out the season that anybody's going to rush in and offer him crazy money. Because hopefully he will have a great year with the new offense and the new offensive line, and that'll be a problem we'd have to face because that would be a good thing. That means the offense was successful this year. So I can see both sides.
Yeah, I do too. And I think a lot of context that needs to go with why the Steelers didn't sign him is the fact that he was an older running back coming out of college. He's got some age and he's got a lot of wear. I mean, the Steelers gave him a tremendous amount of load the first couple of years, in the league. And, he's been healthy and he's defied the odds without coming in with a major injury. And when it comes to doing business in the NFL, you're going to pay the player for what they're going to do, not for what they did. And you can't guarantee that, that type of availability is going to be consistent throughout his entire career with that type of workload. You know what I mean?
But last year, his workload was way more reasonable.
That's true.
Because Warren worked in so much. See, that's what I really like. With Arthur Smith's system, it's going to be a heavy running game. 2 tight ends. And and they're going to really lean on the running game, and everything's going to play off of that. Having Harris and Warren is good for both men because both men will be able to not have the wear and tear. I mean, I think it was Harris's rookie year. He averaged the most yards after contact in the NFL. And he didn't even average 4 yards a carry. What that tells you is he was getting hit at or even behind the line of scrimmage on every run.
Yeah.
And we remember he was dragging guys to get positive yardage. Yes, he took a beating, but thankfully last year that changed, and his total touches went down. And I think it'll only be more even this year, because if it is Harris and Warren, you want Warren to work in there because he's a really good fit for the outside zone. So, but it would also, if Harris doesn't have, if it say he has another 1,000-yard season, but barely gets 1,000, and like he had last year, that will keep his value down. Now, if he goes out and has a 1,500-yard season, his value is going to go up. So it's very important that they do have that dual backfield threat.
I agree with you. I don't disagree. I think it's probably more beneficial for the Pittsburgh Steelers to have both of these guys. Mm-hmm. I think they, as a tandem, they're better than the individual player on their own. Even if, you were to deal Najee Harris and stick with Jaylen Warren as the lone back, I don't think that he'll be as successful as he is as the second guy, as that 1-2 punch.
Yeah.
I think they should kind of keep it the way it is. Now, if you're going to not have a bell cow back, if you're not going to be, giving somebody 85% of the reps, then you're probably not going to want to pay him as such.
Exactly.
And so that probably could also lead to why they didn't sign his 5th-year option. Maybe they're thinking he's more of a $4 million a year back versus a $6 million. And we'll see how that ends up working its way out there. Would you be surprised if he finds himself traded throughout this? Would it be more surprising if he does versus if he's still on the team this year?
I would be shocked if he's traded. Mm-hmm. With all the other changes and the needs they still have and they're trying to address, it would shock me. But again, if there's as much drama that was created with those comments you're talking about, and maybe a little bit of a disconnect between him and Tomlin, because they've always been very close since he come in. He's been Tomlin's guy. Yeah. So if there's a disconnect there, a trade can happen. But I fully expect him to be on the Steelers.
I do too. I do as well. I think that if you look at what Chukwuekorfor said and what Najee Harris said, just what they said and where and when they said it, one was off to the sideline. Nobody really heard it. And you had Najee saying these things to the public and to the media. And it didn't really seem like Najee got anything more than a slap on the wrist. Now, it could be the reason why he didn't get his 5th-year option. We don't know that. But Chukwuekorfor lost his job. And I think that tells me that, Tomlin does like him or does want him a part of the team even more because there's a lot more leeway there. And, that's kind of where I see that. I would be more surprised if he ended up not being a part of the Pittsburgh Steelers this upcoming season. After this year, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But we're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. We just have a few words from our sponsors. If you're watching here on the YouTube side, we'll be back in just a couple seconds. And we're back. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for sticking with us. I appreciate every one of you guys. I'm Daniel. Alongside with me is Shannon White. If you're watching this on the YouTube side, make sure you guys hit that like button and hit that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed already. Get all your content up to date every day on the YouTube side. And then while you're at it, go check out SteelCurrentNetwork.com, your one-stop shop for Pittsburgh Steelers news and coverage. Shannon, do you have anything coming out on the SteelCurrentNetwork.com website?
No, I haven't started nothing yet. I've got a couple of things in the works, but I don't know which I'm going to do next. So just stay tuned.
There you go. Go check it out. Also, you can go check out, I mentioned it earlier, but if you haven't checked out the audio side only, Fridays, I put out a podcast, State of the Steelers, talked about Najee Harris not getting the 5th-year option. Go check it out. I go a little bit more in depth about some of the things that Najee had said during that press conference post the Browns game. that could have resulted in perhaps why he didn't get his fifth year. But with that being said, Naj, he he's going on his last year. There's another person on their last year of their contract, and a former Pittsburgh Steelers offensive lineman, Willie Colon. He thinks that this person is on the hot seat, and that person is Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin hasn't signed any type of extension. He's, it's been rumored that it was going to get done weeks ago, months ago. Still nothing yet. There's no real question for the future at the quarterback position, which is usually tied to the head coach.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about Mike Tomlin's future with the Pittsburgh Steelers at this point? And are you at all concerned, or do you think that this is just, shock jock talk?
Yeah, I didn't even know who said it. And I asked you before we started the show because I seen the comment and it was a former Steeler offensive lineman. And I'm thinking Trey Essex or Ramon Foster. And then you told me it was Willie Colon. I don't think that he's on any kind of hot seat, to be honest. There has not been playoff success for years. We've talked to death. But again, I believe that starting with last year, after Colbert left and Omar Khan took over, we are seeing Mike Tomlin's fingerprints more than ever on this roster. And I believe that Tomlin waited till the draft was over to see, was his input going to be respected? Was he going to have more say? And when I look at this draft class, I see, yes, Omar Khan. I see Andy Weidel. But I also see Mike Tomlin all over, their impact all over this draft class. And I think it's an incredible draft class. I think it's two of the best back to back. Now, only time will tell because, fit matters, culture matters, and production matters. But I think the fit and the culture, you can answer that question right now. These last two classes are a great fit. Now, production we'll have to see. But more things go into that than just player ability. The offensive coordinator, everybody knows my feelings on what has been going on for the last few years. And I'm excited about Arthur Smith, but I believe that Arthur Smith was who Tomlin wanted. I don't know if Matt Canada was who Tomlin wanted. That was a crazy hire, in my opinion. A guy with no NFL experience at all. That just doesn't usually happen that way. You got to earn your stripes. And when you do come on, you're a positional coach in the NFL, and you work your way up to offensive coordinator. I can't remember the last guy that walked from college offensive coordinator to NFL offensive coordinator and did not have great success in college.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just hard for me to imagine Mike Tomlin did that. I believe that it didn't keep him so long. I think that, the rumors are that Tomlin wanted him gone sooner. So I believe that that's why he's held up signing a contract. And I believe he's very happy with this class. I think he's happy with the direction that the Steelers are heading. And I fully expect him to have, if not before training camp, in the early parts of training camp, I think he'll sign an extension.
Yeah, I'm hoping so. I thought it would have been done before the offensive coordinator was selected. Even he himself, when was questioned prior to the signing of Arthur Smith, if he thought it was important for prospects that they wanted to bring in to potentially be the offensive coordinator to find value in stability, that the head coach is going to be there a while. Because if the head coach is gone within a year, and they bring in somebody else, that other person most of the time is going to want to bring in their own staff. And so I thought it was going to be done there. He brought it up. It was going to be done there, and it hasn't been. It hasn't been done yet. At what point do you think that you should worry about this? Do you think if the Steelers start week 1 and it's not done, that there's something to this?
If he doesn't sign an extension before the start of the season, then I will be concerned. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, if that's the case, to me, it's more that the Rooneys didn't offer him what he wanted because they're saying we want a playoff win this year. Mm-hmm. We want to, I think that's not really fair to Tomlin or the players. And the fact that, in my opinion, this is still a rebuilding process. It's a process. It takes time. And, the whole trying to reload and trying to be a winning club during the rebuild, you're not really focusing on the rebuild not fully. You're trying to cheat. There's certain things that takes time in the process, and the Steelers are trying to cheat it and jump ahead in the process, and it doesn't work that way. Sometimes you just got to, take the engine down, take it apart, rebuild it. Just trying to fix a piece here and there, you still ain't fixing the overall problem. So if it goes into the season and he still is not signed, I'll think that's more management, the Rooney's ownership.
Mhm.
They said they want him back, and it's not an issue at all. They've said the right thing the whole time. So that's why I'm thinking that Tomlin will sign before camp.
I think so too. The Rooney's also said they wanted Mason Rudolph back.
Well, that's true. That's true.
You know, I think it gets done too. I really do. I don't see the Steelers, doing this where they're gonna play everybody to think that this is going to happen, and then for it not happen just to quiet down the masses or something. I don't know. It just doesn't sound Steeler like.
Is this really going to be a situation that we, for the first time, are going to feel like that maybe Steeler ownership are not giving us the full truth? I mean, I've always took what the Rooney say more face value. I honestly have.
Yeah.
Because I've always felt like that's the type of ownership group they are.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm with you. I mean, when you look at what happened with the quarterback situation, including Rudolph, and then we find out that, deals were out there and they took them off the table and other things, I'm starting to wonder. See, that's part of the culture I always have felt was honesty, professionalism. Mm-hmm. They're renowned for treating players like adults, like men. Yeah. And I always said the problem is if the players really ain't men. If they don't live up to the standard, that's on the players, not the ownership. But now I'm wondering, can we take everything that the Rooney say is face value anymore?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's always kind of been watch what they do, not what they say. But here recently, it's been towards some very big and important things like, the quarterback position, as you mentioned. Right now, the discussion about the head coach, they kind of tied it, they simmered it down a little bit by saying that it's going to happen. That, they're just waiting for a few things, but it hasn't yet. And, I think if the Steelers go into this and he hasn't signed a contract yet, I think it's definitely going to be dependent on if the Pittsburgh Steelers win a playoff game, unless it's a Mike Tomlin choice. If, he could have, told, Mr. Rooney, like, hey, I have, children that are growing up that are now adults in college and moving elsewhere. I think he has a daughter that's going to be going to college somewhere else and doing gymnastics or something like that. Maybe he wants to be more part of those type of things. I think those have been a lot of the rumors there. So, where there's smoke, there's fire sometimes. And maybe it's more of his decision where he's like, hey, I want to finish out my contract, give you the best I can. And then, go off into the sunset, so to speak. But
I wonder how much of the quarterback room was Mike Tomlin. And what I mean is, did Mike Tomlin say, hey, I didn't want to draft another first round quarterback. I want, because, he's wanting to win sooner rather than later. Again, you have a lot of the players, your superstar players are older and the window's closing. So he might have been like, if we could get a guy, say Russell Wilson, I want Russell Wilson. I want a proven guy who could come in here and we could have success immediately, hopefully.
Yeah.
So, and maybe, as you say, that might be one of the reasons they're waiting to see how this early stages, how this works out. Is Wilson a fit? What's he look like at OTAs? What's he look like early in camp? And before either side makes the decision.
Yeah. I can agree to that. I can definitely agree to that. And so far, we've seen some pictures and a couple of videos here or there of the quarterbacks out there. They look good. Russell Wilson looks like he's in really good shape. The ball is spinning off his hands. I'm excited about this year.
Oh, I think that everything I've seen and heard, Jalen Warren was on, I think, Cam's podcast.
Yeah.
And he said that it's night and day, the quarterback situation, which he should be. You've got an established previous Super Bowl winning veteran quarterback and Justin Fields, who was a very high draft pick and incredibly talented with a good bit of experience. It should be different. And so that I'm glad if he'd have said it's basically the same as it was, I'd be concerned. So,
Yeah.
but that has to encourage us.
Mm-hmm. It definitely does. And you know, one of the things that he brought up that he said was the quarterbacks are telling him how they want them to run run the
Yep.
routes, where to
Yep.
be at, you know, when to turn and things like that. And they're getting comfortable with each other. And if those were things that, you know, they didn't work on before and those little things, then I can see why there was such a lot of miscues when things were live, you know, when teams are trying to come at you. So,
You
man, I'm
remember
excited.
being when you get to be that level of veteran,
Hmm.
you know your job.
Yeah.
You know the offense. You go and you help the younger guys with the little things,
Hmm.
the idiosyncrasies that they need to know, say in a route, you know, when they want what they're expecting the guy to do. But if you're a more inexperienced guy, like say Pickett and Rudolph and guys like that, you're just trying to learn the offense and know what you're supposed to do. You don't really have the confidence to help your teammates.
Hmm.
You know that communication is different.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
So yeah, I'm very encouraged with the experience they have now.
No, yeah, I am too. I think Russ will probably end up being a captain, one of the offensive captains. You want your quarterback to typically take in that role as well. But you know, the title of the show is, you know, the Steelers need their next franchise defining moment. You know, the Steelers have a question mark at the quarterback position, and there's been conversation of trades at the wide receiver position. Do you think that, you know, those are the franchise defining moments, or changes that the Steelers need to make? Do they need to get a new receiver that is, um, you know, one of the top guys in the league, or what is your thought of a franchise defining moment?
Well, when I was thinking about this, we was trying to figure out a title.
Mm-hmm.
Um, every step of the Steelers franchise, there's been these defining moments. You could say hiring Chuck Noll, who drafted me Joe Green, which led to the Immaculate Reception, which got him their first ever franchise playoff victory. Then the 1974 draft, the greatest in NFL history. That all that was a precursor to their legendary success of the 70s and the Steel Curtain. If not for devastating injuries in 76 and 77, the Steelers could have easily won 6 Super Bowls in a row. Nobody's touching that. But those of us old enough to remember, it took that to keep the Steelers from winning 6 in a row because they
Mm-hmm.
were the best team in the NFL all those years. Then you had the 90s, and you had in the 80s and 90s, then you had great players, Rod Woodson and Greg Lloyd and Cardinal, like all these guys. But it wasn't great players is one thing, but they didn't have these defining moments, and they couldn't get over the hump. So the next defining moment for me was when Ben Roethlisberger fell in their lap. I mean, he could have went to the Browns,
Mm-hmm.
and he was gifted to the Steelers. Oh, another thing that kept the Steelers a defining moment, not in a good way, they passed on Dan Marino.
Yeah.
If they had taken Dan Marino, I think they'd be a couple more trophies in the trophy case. But it took all the way to being Roethlisberger, who was a gift and fell in their lap. They need the next defining moment. Because getting a TJ Watt and having the best defensive player in football or whatever, it's great. They have Mike Tomlin. They've got that. They got a lot of things, but they need that defining moment. Sometimes the defining moment is good fortune. Say good luck, if you will. Again, Roethlisberger falling to them wasn't strategy. They was some of them didn't even want him. It was good fortune. He fell to them. So Omar Khan and the Steel organization is going to have to. Sometimes you have to create your good fortune. It be picking up a certain wide receiver this offseason that would give them that edge and put them over the top. I'm not really for that idea because I still think you don't know who your quarterback is. I think first they're going to have to identify the quarterback, then you worry about the rest of it, finalizing this roster. But how that comes about, it might be good fortune again. We might be looking back in 5 years and say, man, when they got Justin Fields, Carr did nothing. He just sat back and let it fall to him. And he got him for nothing, a steal. And then Justin Fields becomes the next franchise quarterback for the Steelers. I don't know. Time will tell. But what I'm saying is somewhere along this path, for the Steelers to be contenders again, they're going to need some good fortune. And that could be the defining moment.
Yeah, it definitely could. You know, a lot of players in the last 2 drafts have fallen to the Steelers. You know, I think when you think of Fatuana, the first tackle taken, he was a guy I think that was projected to go in top 10.
Yep.
To the Steelers. Wilson, Peyton Wilson, he had the injuries and he was expected to fall, but he's also a guy that was also said to have been the best inside linebacker in the draft. You know, Zach Frazier, he fell. The Steelers didn't have to move up to go get him.
That's crazy, yeah.
Like, and Joey Porter Jr. last year, they didn't have to move up back into the first round to get him. You know, there's been a lot of players that have just fallen to the Pittsburgh Steelers these last couple of years. And then you look into also the free agency and the trade with Justin Fields and how little the Steelers gave up for him and how little they're paying, Russell Wilson.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's been a crazy couple of off seasons, but here
I was
we are.
watching or reading a article, and they were talking about Duke Manyweather, who's an offensive line guru that I like to catch his opinions whenever possible. And he said that Frazier was easily the most pro-ready plug-and-play center in the draft, and he fell to the perfect location. And that's what I'd been talking about all of the pre-draft process. And as you say, I wanted him to trade up for him. I was considering taking him into first. They got Fatanu in the first, who, as you said, was projected to go much earlier. Nobody knows where that rumor about his being red flag for his knee even come from. But hey, Steelers benefited. Good fortune. Then Frazier falls because some people took a chance on some project. Well, not a project, but a guy that you're going to have to move, make a position switch, and they're hoping that he can do that. Of course, they might use Graham Martin at guard, where I think he should be. But still, good fortune that you got the best guy, the most pro-ready guy, according to everybody, including an offensive line guru like Duke. You get him at 51. So, as you say, a lot of times just little bits of good fortune to where things just seem to fall into place. It's almost like it's fate.
Yeah. You're definitely right there. The receiver, though, real quick before we call it a show, there's been some, I guess, a couple of people have put out some trade. What's what I'm looking for? You know, what they would be willing, trade capital that they would be put out there for a receiver. And one of it is that they would say, some folks are saying that the Steelers should trade George Pickens for DK Metcalf, and along with some other stuff, a lot of stuff. First round picks and second round too much stuff.
I see it.
But let's just focus on the receiver for receiver. If the Steelers were to have somehow traded George Pickens flat out for DK Metcalf, do you see them in a better position than they are right now?
My concern is, I've talked before, I don't see the second wide receiver 2 putting up big numbers in this offense. So my concern is, what happens if your number one wide receiver goes down?
Oh, that's true.
There's nobody even close on this roster right now that can fill in or imitate a wide receiver 1. So if you trade Pickens to get Metcalf, if he gets injured and goes down for any period of time, you're in the same boat. And right now, Pickens is cheaper. Yeah. Now you're going to have to pay him, but he's not on a level of a $25 million receiver yet. That's what the Steelers need to have happen this year. Pickens needs to show he's a big boy. He's put the immaturity behind him, and he's ready to run a full route tree. He's ready to show that he can be counted on in clutch moments, not just on deep balls or stuff of that nature, but can make those huge catches to keep drives alive, to win games, and show that he is capable of being a wide receiver one. Before last season started, I said the most important thing is the Steelers had to find out, was Kenny Pickett your future quarterback, your franchise quarterback? Well, they got there in a very weird way, but they found out that he wasn't. And then they've had to make adjustments. Same thing this year with George Pickens. They have to find out, is he capable of being a wide receiver one, and are you willing to pay him $20 million or more moving forward?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, DK Metcalf is established. He does have a rapport with Russell Wilson. But when I see the stuff that it's going to cost to get him, I immediately say, no way. I would rather this year, take the bumps and bruises, the learning process to figure out what you have in George Pickens, and get you a quality trade for a quality wide receiver too.
Mm-hmm.
But don't try to get a guy that's going to impinge on what you need to find out about George Pickens. Because if you're taking targets away from Pickens, you're not going to learn what you need to know about Pickens. Plus, there's always the real potential for massive drama.
Yeah, 100%. For me, I think if the Steelers were to try to do the trade, and they ended up sending George Pickens to Seattle, get DK Metcalf, and the rest of it made sense, I think they'd probably be in the exact same spot, to be honest with you.
Yep.
I don't see a difference. I mean, outside of the establishment and the relationship that he has with the quarterback already, if you look back at what George Pickens was able to do with Mason Rudolph there as the quarterback, I mean, his numbers shined. He popped off those last 3 games, including the game that he didn't get a target in. He was out there blocking, and he was being a constructive piece to the offense.
He showed maturity, yes.
Exactly. And so I think he can be he can kind of, I guess, give off those same type of results as a DK Metcalf can. And I think he's less expensive, and it's not going to cost the trade capital to get him as well. So I don't think that would be the smartest move to replace a George Pickens. I don't know how I'd feel about adding Metcalf to the existing room with Metcalf and Pickens. I mean, I wouldn't hate it, but I don't see how it's going to fly in this offense.
And the cost. I mean, it's astronomical. I mean, you're giving up a lot. And I don't know if you're going to reap the rewards for what you're giving up. Sean, my brother, Sean Gurley, Big G, says that he's mentioning Galloway, which I think it's Galloway from the Saints, if I ain't mistaken. Maybe it's Chris Galloway, I've seen as a potential target of the Steelers as a quality wide receiver too.
Yeah.
And I'm all for that, Daniel. I'm all for going a more realistic route. Because I've heard, I don't know how many people and read on Twitter, people saying, oh, they're one superstar wide receiver away from winning a Super Bowl. No, they're not. None of us can say that yet because we don't even know if we got a quarterback or not. We're hoping, that there's potential there, but it still has to be proven. I mean, there's a lot of these teams that are ahead of the Steelers in the AFC have a proven quarterback. And they're a step ahead of us because of that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The quarterback is it's obviously the biggest position on the team. And if you don't have one, you're probably not going to go anywhere. But with that being said, we're going to be closing down the show. I appreciate everybody tuning in.
Yes.
Do you have any final words, Shannon, before we say our goodbyes?
No, we're trying to think outside the box and bring these podcasts with some interesting topics that maybe not everybody's thinking about. And, the being a defining moment for the franchise, what could it be? And we're just all waiting for this, for free agency or the trade, something to happen, because we feel like there's going to be one more move. I think everybody feels like there's going to be one more move before camp. And we're hoping it can be, as we say, a defining moment. So just, stay tuned and check out our articles and our podcast. And And we're going to have. I'm looking forward to some great discussions between now and training camp.
Yeah, me too. And like you said, that move is coming. There's one more move coming. I can
There's
feel
something. Yeah.
it's brewing. There's too much smoke for there not to be fire.
Yeah.
In that rumor. So with that being said, guys, we're out of here. Shannon, take us out, my man.